Hello, we originally had this town hall scheduled last Friday. For those of you who attended, you will know that we decided then to keep it very brief and to make a short statement on the events in Ukraine, given the terrible situation. As described last Friday, our immediate focus has been on our community and on our people. We have taken and continue to take a number of measures to help ensure the safety of our community. While the situation has sadly only worsened, we deeply realize how important the work that we're doing is and how important it is to keep our community informed with the latest from us. Before getting into what we've been up to, we wanted to share with you an initiative that we've actually been starting if you want to actually help the situation of what's happening in Ukraine. This is called Unchained Fund. It has been started by great Ukrainian crypto entrepreneurs, amongst which Illia. Unchained is currently raising funds in NIR to distribute, and many other cryptocurrencies actually, to distribute to humanitarian purposes within Ukraine. The NIR DAOs alone, that is part of this multi-sig, has raised around $1 million in a couple of days. If you want to contribute, you're very welcome, and thank you in advance. And as a reminder, if you need us, please feel free to reach out at support@nir.foundation. We're here for you. Now, on to our agenda. Today's agenda is quite packed, so I'll start by making a brief intro and recap of what NIR is about and where we're at. Julie will share with us recent announcements, which we did at ETH Denver. We'll then have Bowen sharing with us update on the NIR protocol. And then we'll move into topics that are very close to our heart, which are education and awareness. Chris and Yadira will share an overview of our recent awareness activities across the globe, but also what we've been up to at ETH Denver and what events are coming up next. Sherif will share with us what's been happening in the world of education. Last but not least, we'll go into support and how we actually are working together to help support the community. With that in mind, Josh will provide an overview of our funding platform and what we're doing for the ecosystem. And I'll share with you a couple of exciting infrastructure partnerships which we've been working on. Last but not least, we'll go into a short panel with two of our regional hubs. So I'll introduce what regional hubs are for NIR and how we're actually working through that. We have Claudio for LATAM with us, and Rune will cover the UK. Now, getting on to our introduction. At NIR, as you know, our long-term goal is to create an inclusive, healthy, self-sustainable, fully decentralized ecosystem with billions of users. A world where a billion of participants can own their data, decide how and on what they vote, and make revenues in ways that fill their personal ambition and purpose. As I mentioned in the introduction, more than ever, we feel that creating the open web world for trust and transparency is very much needed. As a foundation, we do have three main roles. Number one is actually helping raise awareness of NIR. What is the NIR protocol? How can we actually get more people participating and joining what the possibilities of an open web are giving and are providing? With that pillar, we actually focus a lot of our activities on awareness and education. The second pillar of what we do is actually supporting projects and builders who come and who want to do something on NIR. That can come in the matter of grants or funding, but also in sharing our knowledge, resources, and helping cross-pollinate within the community. And last but not least, we do have a role to play in helping shape governance and a clear and safe path to decentralization for all. The way we think about things, which is usually easier to put on a slide than actually to do in real life, but is a simple flywheel. We are very focused on attracting and helping have talent via programs of education, which you'll hear more about later today from Sherif. And one of our goals is actually how can we have 500,000 qualified students who come and learn about the open web, but also the possibilities of NIR. The second part of that flywheel is assuming that you can attract enough talent, you can help create great projects. And so for that, we are working towards having 100 qualified projects that can help attract users, but also maybe raise external venture capital funding for most. And that talent then leading into projects enables us to actually get to active users. So having active users to create a world where we can have billions of users on NIR is ultimately where we're going for. And at the center of all that, as I mentioned earlier, we do have governance. So again, simpler to put on a slide, but we find it a helpful framework for all of us and across the community to help think through how we're working to things. We've put here a couple of data to share the progress that have been made. Fair enough to say that actually we've made great progress on the number of students that are coming to our program, the number of grants and grant recipients that are being distributed, the number of DAOs that are being created, equally and every day more creative ways to leverage that, and the number of projects that are being built on NEAR. Now, that being said, in terms of active users, it's fair to say, as you can see on the right-hand side, that we do not have yet applications that are creative, sticky, weekly active users. And again, it is something that we're extremely focused on as an ecosystem. Developer growth is something that was mentioned recently in an Electric Capital report, which we find extremely interesting. Now, fair to say that actually, when you look at that slide, the number of developers, while growing extremely rapidly, in particular for the NEAR ecosystem, is still very small. Now, what gives us hope is the fact that building on NEAR is something that is actually made to be simple. The usability is at the core of everything we do. And you might hear more of that actually when Julie will walk us through what's happening with Pagoda. But enabling builders who might be JavaScript builders, we believe will actually help multiply that number by many, many more. And now with that note, I'm going to hand over to Julie to talk about Pagoda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie, head of operations at Pagoda, and I'm super stoked to share what's in store from Pagoda. If we go to the next slide, please. So Illia announced this actually at East Denver. So we're building the next generation of 3 startups. How did we get here and what does that mean? I'll get into that right now. Can we go to the next slide? So if you recall, the goal from day one for the protocol itself was to build a blockchain that was easy to build on and easy to use, and something that could actually support internet scale global usage. And so for the first years of NEAR Inc., which is now Pagoda, you could consider us kind of OG NEAR. These were the devs that built and shipped mainnet back in 2020. And we needed to figure out, okay, we just solved this problem. What's another problem that we can solve to keep the NEAR ecosystem going? And so we put our heads together and realized, well, we accomplished part of our mission of building the underlying infrastructure, but now we realized we really needed to double down on really enabling a more seamless experience for developers and entrepreneurs to launch their own Web3 businesses. And so that's where Pagoda came from, the first Web3 startup platform. Can we go to the next slide? So right now our ecosystem consists of many open source projects that can be integrated as open services. It's a familiar and cohesive development experience on top of a decentralized tool set. In the last year and a half, we've built an amazing global community of projects that will power the open web. Next slide, please. And so to be clear, Pagoda isn't building everything from scratch. While we are building a lot, we're also aggregating existing applications and platforms across the NEAR ecosystem into a single simple experience. Web3 doesn't have a Web2 stack of tools to help startups get going. So for example, in Web2, tools like Amazon, HubSpot, and Intercom can be pieced together to help startups launch, monitor growth, manage UX, and a bunch of other things for those applications. However, every service we use now in Web2 will need to be rebuilt to integrate with Web3 to support wallets, cryptographic primitives, and blockchain data, among many other things. Pagoda is a place that as a developer or entrepreneur, you can come and you can launch your startup quickly. It gives you all the tools you need to launch and operate your startup. What does that mean though? It means you have the blockchain data that's accessible, you have analytics for your application, you have upgradability for your contracts, you can launch a DAO, you can start managing your contracts and ideally your community over time. It also means you can start launching tokens, using lockups, all of the nuances that operation teams like mine spend time figuring out and implementing. All of this is in one place within Pagoda. Pagoda also continues to contribute to the open source nature of the NEAR ecosystem because there's still a lot of development that needs to be done on SDKs and APIs. Next slide, please. So the stack of Pagoda contains everything developers and entrepreneurs need, not only to build usable, secure products on Web3, but also to operate, measure, manage, and market them. At the bottom of the stack is the blockchain protocol, which is the bread and butter of the ecosystem. But beyond that, there are a ton of necessary services and tools that Pagoda brings together. For example, developers are using RPCs. There are data needs that the data needs to be fetched from the blockchain to actually understand what's going on. There needs to be streams of data to react on the front end. We need analytics. There should even be an alert system to pause contracts or something else if something anomalous happens. And then we can figure out with a DAO what to do next, and this could improve security. With wallet services, you as an application have a responsibility to protect your users. So providing them tools such as two-factor authentication and other ways to prevent loss of funds are inherent to the tool set that we provide. And then the question is, let's say you're at a hackathon and you created this really cool thing and you ask yourself, well, now what? Maybe this is a business and you need to launch it, and Pagoda will help ensure that you have the governance structures in place that can help you upgrade your contracts. If you need help fundraising, there are resources within Pagoda that can help you fundraise. And all of this, again, is central into the developer console within Pagoda. Marketing as a tool is also available. There are a ton of different use cases, specifically with NFTs, that are interesting in terms of really bringing to scale and bringing to market your product. And it helps you really double down on the people who are genuinely interested in your products and giving them a bigger voice when they're sharing user feedback. All of this is packaged into Pagoda in the developer console for the first time ever. Next slide, please. So check out pagoda.co and drop your email address if you want to stay connected with updates. You can also follow us at Pagoda Platform on Twitter. Otherwise, thanks so much for your time, and I'll pass it off to Bowen for an update on the protocol.
Hey everyone, I'm Bowen from Pagoda, and today I'd like to provide an update on the protocol. With the increase of usage on mainnet in the past several months, we realized that it is extremely important for us to optimize for stability and performance. To that end, we're working on two major initiatives. One is to make Aurora the most widely used contract on Near to run faster. We are currently collaborating with the Aurora team on that, and the work done this quarter has already yielded a 2x performance improvement. Another thing is that we would like to make storage run faster as well. Storage reads and writes actually consist of a majority part of transactions on Near in general, and it's very important that we make storage access faster overall. So in parallel to the efforts on optimization for stability and performance, we also want to increase community involvement in the protocol development process in general. To that end, we're currently working on two things. One is that we will schedule regular public meetings for community participation and discussion of protocol. We would like to gather more feedbacks as well as ideas from communities on how we should move forward with the protocol. In addition, we're working on defining a rigorous process for new feature development process so that we can make the protocol a more community-owned and community-driven process. All of that is in the workings, and we will post updates on Twitter in the upcoming weeks. So please follow us on Twitter and stay tuned for the news. With that, I'll pass it on to Chris for marketing updates.
Hey guys, Chris Gent from the Near Foundation. Really here to give you guys an update on what we've been doing within the ecosystem from a marketing perspective. If we jump to the next slide, you guys have very likely seen us in the news and around the US, but also around the globe, where we've been doing a little bit of test and learn when it comes to marketing, go to market, but also how we can leverage things from the Web2 world to help advance the conversation around Web3. So if you saw us in Miami, you likely saw us in context of NFTs with Ease and Deadmau5, which was a project run by the Mint-based team. The aim there really was to make NFTs and music NFTs accessible to the masses and be able to get people in and start collecting and start a conversation around, how do you actually recognize music and music-based NFTs is something that should be accounted for when an artist is going platinum. So thinking about artists as folks that are driving the conversation around change and adoption of new technology with partners like the Mousetrap team and Deadmau5. From there, we actually jumped to New York and San Francisco. In New York, we really started to go and have a different conversation around carbon footprints. And, there's always a lot of conversation around layer ones and carbon usage and offsets and all of those things, which we are proud at the Near Foundation and in the Near community to be a carbon neutral blockchain. We're actually offset with our partner, South Pole. So while you see these buses and your first thoughts probably, are these buses dirty? They absolutely are. And so what we're doing is making sure that when we even look at our footprint of our go-to-markets, that we're accounting for that as we go around the world. And on the right there, you see a little bit of mass reach. So we've been close media partners with Brave Browser and Brave Software to really look at how we can leverage things like sponsored image takeovers around the globe to drive eyeballs and awareness and people into the Near ecosystem to experience and learn. Learning being a really big key and pillar of what we're going after to get people into the industry and to start building. So thinking about building in San Francisco, the focus really was on MetaBuild, which is a large hackathon that has just closed, actually, and we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. But we brought in cross-chain partners. You see the bridge in the background there. We're trying to build bridges, which is something that you've heard from us in Twitter and in the conversation for quite a bit. But we're really asking people to be brave, step up, be a builder, put your best foot forward, and don't let what chain that you've started on stop from where you're going to realize the Web3 future and the open web. So with that, jump into the next slide. So let's get down to the numbers. So since the beginning of the year, across Reddit, Twitter, CoinDesk, Brave, we've had over 340 million global impressions. That has led to a little under 4 million engagements. So that actually is clicks to come into the space and into the site and to start learning about Near. And we've actually seen exponential growth on Twitter. It's over 60,000 new followers on Twitter from the activity that we've been driving. Now, Reddit, we actually did for the beginning of the year, a little bit of conversation around this being the year of Near. We actually saw our Reddit following double in the last month and a half. And with that, really starting to drive a conversation and start to actually hear from the community about what do people care about most? What do they need, from tooling to concerns about environmental impact? So starting to give us more signals about what end users are actually looking for. And so thinking about what people are looking for, they're actually looking for information. So 87,000 views on YouTube, with almost 10% of that being our town halls. So the fact that we're here talking about these things right now becomes really important, because the town halls are the place where you can ask your questions, where you can come in, where you can start to participate, and where you can start to demystify some of the things that you might hear in the media. But most importantly, these aren't just vanity numbers that we're going out to the world with and saying, hey, pat ourselves on the back for being seen. We're actually seeing this translate to on-chain activity directly through marketing initiatives. So over 162,000 wallet transactions from New York to Miami to Denver, even for Free Denver, as well as a Hung Bao initiative around Lunar New Year. So with that, we're seeing activity, we're seeing numbers push forward, we're seeing exposure, and we're getting the Near protocol out to the world. So jumping to the next slide, we will talk a little bit about MetaBuild. So like I said, this is the largest hackathon that's been run. And if we jump to the next slide, again, by the numbers, we had nearly 4,000 participants, which is pretty amazing. We had a number of partner challenges with partners like The Graph, Flux, Mintbase, Paras, and Brave. So we're really looking forward to seeing who the winners are and what they've put forward and out into the world for the community to pick up and start playing with or consider to build further. But seeing 313 submissions is pretty awesome for the start of the year. The next hackathon will start in August. We will share out the updates from the latest one, just so you can see who won, who built what are people most interested in the space. But there are additional events in the pipeline. And if you're thinking about running a community event or a hackathon, definitely let us know. Reach out to Maria at the Pagoda team. Her email is there on the right-hand side. And, keep building within the community. I think the biggest thing we can do is ask you guys to get educated, spread the word, and get building. And with that, I'll pass it over to Yadira to talk about ETH Denver and what we saw out there.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about ETH Denver, which some folks have touched on, and we'll dive into upcoming events. So let's get into it. Next slide, please. All right. So 2 weeks ago, Near activated during ETH Denver with the angle of building a multi-chain open web future. Our approach was broken down into 2 parts, the first comprising of the Near Beetle Week Lounge and followed by the ETH Denver Hackathon. So the lounge was live for about 3 days. We had 26 sessions totals. Everything from panels, talks, workshops, networking opportunities were hosted in our space. Sample sessions included everything from NEAR 101, getting started on NEAR, a spotlight on the Aurora ecosystem, which has been blossoming and rapidly growing. Parachains with Octopus Network, creating seamless onboarding of the masses with Brave, and forecasting the future of funding with CoinFund. We also hosted a couple of sessions on DAOs, which have become increasingly popular, and the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Given that this space that's rapidly growing, it is always going to be of huge value and importance to bring in diverse persons, different backgrounds, minds. All in all, we received positive feedback at the event and online through social media. Next slide, please. So here you can see just some of the snapshot highlights of some of the momentum and accolades that we were receiving online. Next slide. And just a roundup of ETH Denver by the numbers, we had close to 1,000 contacts captured. In our space, we had about 250 people at peak. These sessions were not live streamed to YouTube, but we did play with Twitter Spaces. And on day one, we had a total of 3,000 views. So all in all, there was a lot of interest there. And on YouTube, we launched one video on how to create an NFT on NEAR, has received about 1,400 views. And on the main core part of the hackathon, Illia, Marique, and some of the others were interviewed by Time Magazine, CoinDesk, Epicenter Podcast. I'm sure some of you have seen some of those published pieces on media. And NEAR was also very present within the ETH Denver Hackathon official program. We had about 15 sessions, and again, some of our top panels moderated by Andrew Chow of Time Magazine, Zach Seward of CoinDesk, and Jeff John Roberts of Fortune. The event isn't over just yet for the hackers. So if you are hacking, I encourage you all to submit a bounty under NEAR. If you want to check those out, be sure to check out ETH Denver's website, and you'll be able to see all of the bounties that NEAR has put forth. So more news to be shared there. Excited to see all of the submissions that NEAR will receive. So we'll circle back again, most likely in April, with some of the news there. Next slide. And finally, on upcoming events, NEAR will have a presence during Paris Blockchain Week Summit. So while I can't reveal too much information there will be more news to come. And always be sure to check out NEAR.events, where you can see all of the events happening from NEAR's pipeline, which the NEAR Foundation organizes, or other submissions from the community. So any questions, that is always the best resource I'd recommend for everyone to take eyes on, and always follow us on social media. Next slide. And I'd like to pass it off to Sharif, who will cover the education updates. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Sharif. I work on education with NEAR Foundation. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for your attention. Just before I dig into the details, I want to remind everybody that for the education team, we have a vision of a world where millions of makers use NEAR, recognizing it as the best place to build the open web, starting with about 500,000 activated makers at the end of 2022. It's a very ambitious goal. To that end, we are holding a few guiding principles in mind. You may have heard these before coming from different people around the ecosystem. Number one, users don't realize that they're working with blockchain technology at all. Number two, participants of the ecosystem have a smooth journey to their goals. Number three, makers are able to engage self-directed learning experiences from zero to hero. Number four, educators, teachers, perceive teaching Web3 and using NEAR as an attractive professional opportunity, actually. And finally, of course, the materials and systems that we have are continuously improving. Let's dig into a couple of details. Next slide, please. So since the start of the year, we have trained just about 40,000 students, 75% of those coming through training partners that we engaged a couple of quarters ago, Q3 of 2021, who are now just getting warmed up. We hope to see a lot of amazing things from those partners all around the world. Only about 100 of those people have earned the exclusive NEAR certified developer certification at this point by submitting original demos of their own design that have been reviewed by experts in our ecosystem. And of course, we expect to begin to scale out the review process and the support that we provide for people to earn these certifications. We've also engaged about 300 universities with active ambassadors on their campuses. Incredibly excited about that initiative. And 30 companies are now actively engaged in recruiting NEAR certified developers through jobs.near.university. Check it out. Of course, you're welcome to join us, near.university/certify. Check out the link at the bottom of this slide. Let's move on to the next slide, please. In terms of fellowships and grants, our ways of earning, out of 180 amazing fellowship applications, 50 have been accepted and are actively working today around the world on writing new training material, building applications, integrating with existing systems, helping to engage the community and the ecosystem at large. So very exciting activities happening there from the fellowship program. And on the grant side, over the last 150 days, 47 grantees spread among 15 countries around the world have received just under 2 million USD worth of NEAR tokens. And their activities are ranging from integration with learning management systems to art projects that we hope you'll get to enjoy with us over the coming weeks and months as we release those to the world. Next slide, please. I'd like to spotlight a couple of individuals and groups that are doing particularly well in the way that they're engaging with these opportunities. So Hiba, for example, has been bringing NEAR to the Middle East. She is, aside from being a mother to a 4-year-old and a PhD candidate in urban planning, she joined the NCD program after a 90-day coding bootcamp. And talk about productive, she has since then conceived and led the development of NEAR in minutes with the help of several other NCD project graduates. She has also built NEAR by Example, a new website that she's built with one of her colleagues, also a graduate of the NCD program, which will help people learn faster by bringing examples into a coherent series of lessons. And to inspire others to join her on her journey, she recently launched NEAR in Arabic with the help of 2 other NEAR University fellows who are bringing NEAR into the Arabic-speaking world so that people can learn and earn and get connected with others without having to cross the very difficult and challenging barrier of learning English first, if anybody is familiar with that. And so moving on to the next slide, please. If we look into the fellowship programs, a number of exciting developments there. I'd like to highlight Gautam Padiyar in particular, who's bringing NEAR to campuses. He is a machine single-handedly, having launched multiple initiatives which are engaging students with NEAR. So in this 3-month fellowship, he ran a pilot for the Campus Ambassador Program, which brought over 100 ambassadors. And then in January, he doubled down on that effort and that model and received a grant to scale the program, which is now reaching close to 300 campuses and engaging tens of thousands, almost 100,000 students, around 328 campus ambassadors. So lots and lots of people engaging here. And he continues to innovate, having launched a validator as well as building a local dev shop that is helping non-technical entrepreneurs building on NEAR. So definitely, as a fellow, he is really breaking barriers and raising the bar there. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Finally, I'd like to highlight a wonderful example in our effort towards decentralized education. NEAR Hispano has been bringing NEAR to Latin America. And this is a small group of very dedicated and focused and capable entrepreneurs and engineers that have been growing NEAR's presence in Central and South America over the last 6 to 8 months and have capably not only completed all of our certification programs, NEAR Certified Developer and NEAR Certified Instructor, but then gone on to translate these programs into Spanish and successfully delivered to hundreds of other developers and entrepreneurs, NEAR Certified Developer, and are now launching NEAR Certified Instructor in Spanish. They also innovated on their own by creating a NEAR Certified Professor program, NCP, to bring NEAR certification training to university professors and to make it appealing for them to bring NEAR into university classes. So finally, Near Hispano has also been working in close cooperation with the education team to bring on over 20 developers and residents as part of their initiative to adopt the fellowship program. And they are working with those developers to ship apps directly to mainnet. I think now we're at 3 applications on mainnet with more coming. Lots of exciting work there for the Spanish-speaking community. So hopefully today, what you've heard is that we are working with people all around the world to engage them in their native language, to innovate on the Near platform, and to bring that to the world, again, on their own terms in their local region. And hopefully this inspires you to come and join us at Near.University to get certified, apply for a fellowship, and even consider applying for a grant. Thank you. Next, I'll introduce Josh Daniels, who will talk to us about funding.
Thanks so much, Sharif, for the update. That was really exciting updates from the education space. So wanted to spend some time with the group here speaking about funding and ecosystem. And just for by way of introduction, Josh Daniels, the Near Foundation focused on funding. Next slide. So over the last year or so, we've really been spending a lot of time deeply thinking about what does funding mean within the Near ecosystem. And as part of that, we developed this vision, which we call the Near Foundation Funding Platform, which is at its core focused on driving success of the ecosystem by providing clear and efficient support across these 4 pillars. One is around supporting that creator triangle, which Marique and others have talked about a bit earlier, the town hall, around basically supporting and activating communities and projects that need support. The next is providing access. So making sure that individuals and projects and teams in areas wouldn't necessarily receive support and funding are ultimately able to gain access, again, efficiently and clearly via the foundation's funding platform. Next is community, really looking to work with folks that have new ideas and are really on the edges of thinking creatively about how to engage and develop within Near and making sure they have the support they need as well. And the next is aligning incentives. This is really making sure those partners that we have and those projects that we do work with, making sure that there's a milestones-based approach to development and growth so that all are really aligned in terms of that overarching goal of really growing the Near ecosystem and having significant development going forward. Next slide. So over this last year, we've had a lot of growth as we've looked at sort of funding, again, as a sort of core vision and focus for us at the foundation. Here are some of the big highlights. A couple that I'll call out here that I think are really exciting for us is the deployment of grants. And so where we've sort of deployed direct grants to projects to support them with over 270, which is really exciting. That is then coupled with a lot of the grants that have been deployed within education and other areas within the ecosystem as well. We've also had projects that have sort of received grants, but then also have moved into the next phase of development and received funding from outside sources. So you can see here that close to $80 million was raised by a multitude of projects in the ecosystem that were looking to drive, again, continued growth and engagement as they build and develop. And then the other one that's really exciting here is then looking at deployment across guilds and community-driven projects. So this is something that is going to be a priority for us as we move into 2022, of really sort of continuing to focus here and identify projects and teams that are really working at community level development. And we'll hear a bit more about this as we think about our regional approach. Next slide. And so quickly want to pause here to kind of let folks know how, if you are building and engaging and developing, how can you get more involved? So the first way here on the left is to really engage our funding team, which I lead. We have both non-equity, equity funding, and then regional-based funding. And so here are the places where you can reach out. But ultimately, our view here is to really be sort of creative and supportive for all projects that are looking to develop and figuring out what works best for them. Next is we've launched several grant pools in collaboration with several other projects and teams within the ecosystem. Here you can see a selection of them. And ultimately, these are focused on really supporting projects, whether they be in the decentralized finance space, whether they be looking to integrate via our layer 2 Aurora, or whether they are gaming on the human guild side. And then obviously you heard a bit about Near University from Sharif a little earlier. Next, you can see our backers network. This is a collection of investors, supporters, advisors, really sort of, thought leaders in the space that are ultimately very interested in engaging with and supporting and developing projects as they grow and build. And so we're happy to connect folks directly who are interested in speaking with folks within that network. And then here on the far right, you can see engaging with our Near ecosystem broadly. And so you can see here, these are links to various resources and teams that you've heard from here, especially, that will help you to explore even more what are the opportunities within the ecosystem. Next slide. So quickly on the ecosystem front, wanted to really take a step back and focus on two areas where we've seen a really significant amount of growth and development over the last 4 or 5 months. The first is on the NFT side. So over the last 3 or 4 months, we've seen a lot of interesting projects develop here. This includes net new primary launches of NFTs that have been growing. We've also seen launch pads develop. You can see a few here that are noted, including Yearnauts, Astro, and Utopia. Our secondary market has also been really flourishing over the last several months as well. For us, which is one of our largest secondary markets right now, based in Southeast Asia, has spent a lot of time developing their ecosystem. And so they've actually seen this last month over $7 million worth of secondary volume sort of trading that's gone on their platform, which has been really exciting to see. We've also had some net new projects come on that are providing analytics and information support in the NFT ecosystem. So neartracker.io is one of those, where you're able to see all of the existing projects that exist, some of the top performers, as well as some of the net new projects that are coming to market. So there's a lot of excitement here that we're seeing, and we're very excited to support and welcome all projects who are looking to engage in that space. Next slide. Area that we've seen a lot of really great interest, and especially on the grant side, have seen dozens of applications and projects looking to either build natively or develop or integrate via other chains, has been in the gaming side. And so here we're going to show you a video from our Team Human Guild, which I highlighted a bit earlier, which shows some of the really gaming projects that they have been working with and have really done great things over the last second half of the year in 2021. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to watch that video and learn a bit more about funding in the ecosystem. So now I'm going to pass it back off to Marique, who will talk a little bit more about infrastructure partnerships with the foundation.
Before we get into actually our regional panel, one thing we wanted to highlight is partnerships, and in particular infrastructure partnership, how we think about that. I think you're starting to hear us talk a lot about building bridges and a multi-chain world, and that's indeed what we believe in. And with that in mind, we are working a lot on making sure we can have the right infrastructure partnerships so that the ecosystem can thrive. The first partnership which I'd like to highlight is actually Elliptic. You may have read about that on our blog. Elliptic is now available for near native. And what that means is actually it's very exciting for, in particular, having enhanced on-chain security and access to data, and in particular, being able to build strong fin crime solution. The second partnership that I wanted to mention here is actually Allbridge. Again, back on the theme of actually building bridges, we have been working with Allbridge, which is the first bridge to connect Near Protocol to Terra, Solana, and Celo ecosystems. More to come on more bridges, but again, these two things we believe are quite important for all of you in the ecosystem to be able to build bridges and build strong solutions that are not only built on the Near ecosystem, but also relating and being linked to other ecosystems. And now we're going to go into the last part of our town hall, and we're going to talk actually about regions and have with that a regional panel. So I have here with me today Rune, who will talk about what's going on in particular in the UK and in Europe. And I have here with me also Claudio, who will talk about Latin America. Before doing that, just a brief introduction on what we mean by regions and why regions matter in a Near ecosystem. You've heard actually Sharif mention that education is in particular important for us, in particular having like local material that enables people to really grasp the meaning of what's being discussed and what's being taught. Well, that's why we are actually expanding via regional hubs, because we believe that actually to be a global company and actually to be a global protocol, we need to have a local, very regional footprint. So regional hubs help all of us expand the Near platform and really get to the billion of users. It's actually only a few people, although it's still a majority, but few people who really speak English. And we want to actually enable the access to more of that. Having local adoption is super important because you can have local activation of awareness. It's therefore possible to have local drive of adoption, supporting projects, finding local connections, local partnership building, local community building, and having the right educational program in the right language. So that's why we're doing all of that. So when we look at regional hubs, where we're at and what that means and how we approach that. So on the left-hand side, you'll see our general approach, which usually we start with local events, meetups, and then we go into education, empowering the community, having grassroots go-to-market, product labs, which can become startup incubation, developer relation, and ultimately get into what we call ecosystem funds. On the map, you can see lots of different locations. If you, by the way, have ideas of places where we're not and you'd like to be involved or participate, please reach out. This map is constantly evolving. Now, let's get into our panel. So Claudio is here with us today to talk about Latin America, and Rune is here also with us to talk about UK and more broadly also Europe, and I'll be moderating the panel. Claudio, Rune, thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys. So look, I mean, I think let's start with a little bit of background. I'm sure people want to know your stories and why Near actually, why does Near matter to you? Should we start with you, Claudio?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Marie, and hello, everybody. Regards from Mexico City to the world. Yeah, so for us, we started as a guild with Near Hispano, and our objective was basically trying to understand more about the Near protocol. A little bit of background myself. So I've been building on Web 2.0 for the last 12 years. Have been experimenting with blockchain technology for the last 3, and successfully finally launched something on a blockchain technology about a year ago, and that was on the Near protocol. So I'm full long on Near, but at the end of the day, I found myself alone. And there's definitely, if you want to go far, you need to be doing it with a community, with your peers. And so that's what initially started our interest to launch Near Hispano, and that was because of the support from Open Web Sandbox, of Ants Guild as well. And we saw that there was opportunities for us to collaborate and cross-pollinate between each of the guilds. And yeah, so I took the jump, and just posted on the forum, hey, who wants to write about Near in Spanish? And here we are. About 8 months later, and a few boot camps and support from the Near Education. And here we are launching the regional hub.
Amazing. And I think the approach you guys have taken, in particular translating and having that in local native language, is fantastic. Great, thank you. Rune, should we go to you? Because it's quite a different, actually, background and way that you came to NEAR, but what's your story and why NEAR and what do you do for NEAR?
I don't know if it's different, but I'm thinking like, why not NEAR, right? When people ask me that question, but we can discuss that for a couple of hours probably. I spent 9 years, almost 9 years at Google in Google Cloud, and we're always involved with startups. Also before then, had my own startup back in 2006, actually. Never made it to the unicorn status, but learned a few bits and pieces from that. And I left Google in July 18 and joined Joe Lubin's $50 million fund called Consensus Ventures. And for me, what really triggered that was I was organizing an event for the ex-Google community at the Google offices in London in November 17. I remember this day clearly because it was the day before Bitcoin hit $10,000. And we had probably 130 crazy young people in the room going absolute bonkers about whether it was ETH or Bitcoin, which was gonna, survive and win. And I was like, I wasn't sure if I was worried or, excited about this sort of crazy vibrations and vibes in the room, but I was like, I gotta understand this better. And I was really driven trying to understand this sort of phenomena. And 7-8 months later, I was on my way out and going deep down the rabbit hole with with my job there at Consensus Ventures. And part of it was also like driven by the fact that I felt we needed to change. I began to Google from the inside. I saw this amazing company, amazing people, but also felt like there is a deeper need for change in society, and now there is a potential technology which can help put sort of more power in the hands of the people, so to speak. But also having worked with a lot of ex-Google startups over the years, and I'll come back to sort of my story with Illia there in a second. But I felt for me really like what was frustrating was there are so many great ideas out there. There's so much potential and smart people, but they don't always get the help they need in order to actually execute and try out solving those problems they see, right? And for me, the big problem was also like how funding is sort of being or was organized and still is to a large degree today, where I look at the VC model as most people know it, is dead. And I felt like maybe there is something here where we could apply this sort of next generation internet technology to actually sort of unlock that potential. And it's never as simple as you think it is, or it's not the same as what it looked like in the past. But clearly, I think we're onto something here, and it's already happening. We're right in the middle of it. But I think that's sort of the bigger context. I got to know of NEAR end of 18, I think just after or slightly a short time after Illia and Alex had pivoted from their ML play to blockchain, which is sort of a well-known story by now why they did that. And for me, having worked with ex-Googlers, knowing Illia was an ex-Googler, so like I gotta keep an eye on them. And at the same time, they reached out to me and a few other ex-Googlers in early 2020, asking for how can we help them sort of kick off their prepare for the mainnet launch. And I was like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be involved in something where there is a before and after mainnet launch. And as Claudio mentioned, there's a Guild program, which is sort of have evolved, but I think there's still a lot of those sort of same components. So I kicked off, which was actually named by a NEAR member at that time. We called it the Goo Guild, which was basically a guild for Googlers, ex-Googlers, and friends. And that then sort of organically evolved into running one of the first validator nodes. We participated in Stake Wars. That's still running very successfully, this sort of NEAR dedicated validator node. And I think for people new to sort of the world of blockchain and the next generation internet that we are building here, for me, it was like, okay, there is this sort of proof of stake or variations of it, right? Which is sort of going to be the dominant player or mechanism to run these future generation protocols or like the layer of the internet, right? So for me, it was sort of like a no-brainer to try to get involved in that. And also there's a huge untapped sort of topic here around governance. How do we secure all these things? It's just like, there's so much to learn and do. And long story short, that evolved into Move, which is sort of a fund dedicated to founders building on near or with the near stack. And, we want to support the most ambitious founders as early as possible. Super excited about the time we've spent with near and the ecosystem, and also what's actually ahead of us. The future is bright. Thank you, Marika.
Wow, thank you. So two actually very different stories, but which in a way are also contributing differently regionally to the near ecosystem. Claudio, I'm actually curious, like when you look at your region, which is a massive region actually, what are some of the exciting stuff that's happening in LATAM?
Yeah, so definitely for us we're tied at the hip with educating, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to understand that this is a change of paradigm. And while right now, like the new generation entrepreneurs are launching on the SaaS space or in the fintech space, this gives this creates a gap for the new entrepreneurs coming in or being taught in the whole region, is that there's a leapfrog effect here, right? Whether it's on the old guard or Web 2.0 space, you had this models emulating the Silicon Valley model of yes, venture, seed, and all these funding phases, where now you can launch and you can do a community launch, and there's an opportunities to raise funds, but also to be self-sustainable from day one, if you grasp on the power of communities. And I think that shows a good example of what Lucio and myself built with Metapool, which we launched on mainnet without no backing or no safety net at all. We take a Hail Mary on it, right? And at the end of the day, we found out that the near ecosystem was supporting, we built something that was needed for the community, and the community backed us up. And also a couple of the early near employees as well. They saw that what we're building was something that was valuable for the ecosystem. And so we think we can replicate that in the whole region. There are some low-hanging fruits out there that may seem solved for more in the Western hemisphere, right? Like, for example, for us, off-ramp and on-ramp payments. It's something that's been already solved in most regions, but in Latin America, that's still lacking. And there's, for example, this project coming from Venezuela called Near P2P or so peer-to-peer. And so the idea here is that the communities themselves are supporting onboarding and offboarding also users into the near ecosystem or to any other blockchain, to be honest. So, and this goes with the narrative around building bridges. And so that's one of the key things we're building right now. So it's bridges around educating anyone that's interested in understanding what this change of paradigm will be. And so we're focusing on different aspects, not just only on the technical savvy, but people that, for example, teachers, right? They are the guardians of the next generation of entrepreneurs and engineers and designers all over the region. And they need to understand what blockchain technology is. And so we're reaching out to them and going 2 steps back, right? It's not about all decentralization, owning your keys and some slang that for them is foreign, but they do understand the basics, right? Which is, can you control your assets? Is this something that, well, no, in Venezuela, no, the banks are owned by the government, right? In Mexico, yes, there's a little bit of a more freedom, but just let's be honest with that. It's just everything right now, people do not know what to do if they control their own assets. And so we need to teach them. And then when you teach them how to build, then that creates a flywheel effect where more people get attracted to it, because they could say, okay, I can build my own future. There's programs that will teach me how to fish, right? And so in the pond is really big. So definitely there's a lot of things going on the creative sides. We've through the Near Hispano Guild, we launched the first NFT marketplace, both supported on the Aurora network and on the Near network. So that came out of a NCD program and some of the fellowships that Sharif and his team put out to the ecosystem. And so we built that. We built those first use cases or success cases So we inspire more people to come into the NEAR ecosystem, start first to understand what it is, and then look around their surroundings and see where opportunities are to bring this technology to solve real world problems. And so with that is just excited to have everybody in. We have a chat group with more than 3,000 people from all over the world in our Discord, and also Spanish speaking as well, right? Because as you understand, and if you've gone to California, you don't have to speak English. If you talk Spanish, most likely somewhere on the other side of the counter of the taxi or whatnot, they'll talk to you in Spanish. So it's a broad language that is mostly filtered out throughout the globe. And so we want to leverage that and build those bridges so we can build value for the ecosystem, but more importantly, for the regional communities that are in desperate need for this. And we believe that there's a great opportunity we're going to be building in the next 6 to 8 months. So happy about that.
Thank you. That's amazing. And I can hear a lot indeed about, the flywheel that I shared at the beginning, which is actually, it starts a lot with talent education. Then you inspire people, they build project, and they can see actually that there is something happening there. Really good. And also great to see that, you have a clear view also what's missing, right? So for anyone out there, on-ramp, off-ramp is definitely a missing pieces of the puzzle. And so building that for the region, but also I'm sure for other region will be super important. Rune, if we change actually, side of the globe and go with you, like, are you seeing any like trends that you would say are specific for the region that you look at, or actually would you say that all trends in for the NEAR ecosystem and more broadly for crypto are similar? I'm just curious to figure out, like, how do you think about those investments across regions and trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, I mean, one part is definitely like being a European, for years we were always like valuation and rounds and unicorns, compared to US, they were way ahead of the curve, right? And a part of that was obviously talent was based on location. I think now also knowing Claudio and his team really well, we are fortunate to be supporting them from the early days. Talent is everywhere, right? And people can work from anywhere, right? Most often, right? And nothing beats meeting in person. There's no doubt in that, right? But I think, and also where the regional hubs from the NEAR side, is incredibly important. And if I'm not mistaken, actually, we have the first NEAR London meetup on Thursday. So you should definitely ping Sandy and Mark from the NEAR team if you want to get involved in that or join up. But yeah, I think like that we are like a sort of the fund is incorporated in the UK, but we have founders and people we work with are from anywhere, and that goes also from the other direction, right? And I think that's where you're also looking at the funds from that side of thing, like whether it's crypto or not, also coming from US and investing in the region, right? And I think that's it's changing the rules of the game a bit for the existing players, but I think that's great, right? And that is all the ultimate game, and it's the same for us as well, right? We have to be aware of that. And I think like we're trying to some degree to maybe this is sort of more NEAR specific, right? But like where we saw NEAR was a year ago, I mean, it evolved a lot as a technology. The technical execution has just been on the spot, and we have hopes high that the team will continue to do that, but also like from an ecosystem point where we feel there is a lot of attention now. We have to drive less inbound than we had to do a lot more outbound, so to speak, before than we do today. But I think we still like what really excites me is there's an opportunity to actually build as well, right? And maybe there is a small story here to share with the audience as well. Actually, we were if you take this as probably like 16 months ago now, we were thinking about building out our own liquid staking project from the Move side before we were fully launched, because we saw that as a primitive that was needed in the ecosystem. We actually had a press release lined up and we had some grants lined up. And then 1 week before, someone told us about Metapool, and we were like, hey, hang on a moment. They're way better than us. They're way further than us. And we don't want to compete there. We just want to see these sort of core components in the ecosystem, being built out. So we quickly canned our project before, and then we reached out to the medical team, and yeah, so I think we're trying to have that sort of builder approach where we see we can drive that, but we're also dependent on that others obviously sees the same problem to be solved. But now it's like we have people coming to us. There are several wallets being built out, like also for the more like sort of institutional space. So I think those are some of the changes, right? And there's that sort of I would say next generation of startups is also building for the multi-chain world, right? That we know where Near is going to be and is sort of thriving in really well, right? And can play a huge role in. So I think, yeah, I'm not sure if that sort of geographically, but definitely something that I've noticed. And I could also say, like, just looking at the numbers, like I think in December we looked at more than, like, actually assessed more than 50 projects, right? For potential investments. Go back 6 months, maybe it was 10 or 15, right? So it's just gonna keep evolving like that, and that's obviously allowing us or enforcing us to keep us on our toes. Yeah, and I think the last one is also the talent, right? Like, so something that we see a lot. I think we've had a lot of discussions, including with you folks from the Near Foundation as well, about how to attract, but I think it's a very fine balance because versus push or pull. In the last 6 months, we've seen major sort of groups from Facebook, Google, Amazon, et cetera, the traditional companies actually come because maybe they're bored, maybe they want more impact, but at least they're hungry to build out and build out their own businesses, that entrepreneurial grit, and solve problems and try to build the next generation internet. We clearly want to support that, right? And that's, to me, just some of these signs that whether there's another crypto winter or not, like, we still continue to see that inflow of strong talent, right? And that's from all over the world, UK, so forth.
Completely. I think there's been quite a few articles on that, on the trend of like from Web 2 to Web 3. And I think what we are, the three of us actually saying is that the need of talent across different geographies and across actually different skill sets is very, very much needed. Great. I like the fact that from what you're saying, when the world is definitely flattening and the game for VC is changing a lot, and the builder approach, making sure that the next gen startup can actually be helped in the way that means it's actually something quite different. Super interesting. We're almost out of time, but maybe one short answer, right? Short answer to last question. What's the one thing that excites you most when you look ahead at the year ahead? So Claudio, should we start with you?
Yeah, for me, it's all about, I have to back Josh on this one, right? It's all about games. I believe that's going to be it's going to be at the forefront, and it's going to be part of every major layer one strategy to reach out to the masses, right? And education. And I think both of them can combine really, 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 really well. And so that's a big bet we're going to be making as a regional hub. We're going to be educating people. We need to understand how we make it that attractive to get to gamification. And then with that, teach about on-chain information and how that feeds like a virtuous loop, and try also to teach people to understand about what this means towards transparency and privacy as well, which are two things that people sometimes take for granted. And when they're coming into the crypto space, and then they need to understand that they need to manage those. That those are not going to be managed by the four big letters, right? And so definitely that's a great shift that's going to happen. And so we need to educate people on that shift. And so that's, for me, it's going to be the next big bet. And then how you let people manage their assets. So it's just take it step by step, but definitely gaming is going to be a big part.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks for that. What about you, Arun? One thing.
Focus. Everybody should just really focus. Nothing is given, and that's also what excites me the most, is that if we don't do anything, like everybody on the call listening, like nothing is going to happen. But actually, if we really pull our sleeves up and really do everything and a little bit more in 2022, I really believe this year can be the year where NEAR sets itself apart from the rest of the pack. And focus is what is required, and execution.
Agree. So many opportunities everywhere. Look, guys, thank you so much for being here today. Two different approaches, but actually equally participating in helping build a very vibrant NEAR ecosystem. So I hope to all our listeners today that you enjoyed what you heard. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. More than ever, what we're building matters. And I think if you take one thing from today is that the ecosystem is vibrant, it's global, it's building, and please stay safe and continue building. Thank you.